Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm thrilled to have two really fun and special guests on. So we have Claire Catrino, who is the Dallas Symphony Orchestra League president, and Maggie Kipp, who is one of the co-chairs for the organization's annual signature fundraiser, their 2026 presentation ball. So the Dallas Symphony Orchestra and the league is a really well-run organization, and they work in tandem with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. So we're going to talk a little bit about the partnership of how they work with the organization, as well as some more information about the ball. So with that, Claire, Maggie, welcome, and I'm just so thrilled to have you both here today.
Thank you for having us, Rob. We're elated to be here.
Thank you, Rob. Such a great opportunity to speak about the Symphony League.
Absolutely. So, Claire, I'm going to direct that first question to you. So what is the mission of the Dallas Symphony Orchestra League?
So, the mission of our Dallas Symphony Orchestra League is to support the Dallas Symphony Orchestra through our service, education, and fundraising activities. We have been around for 80 years. We are celebrating our 80th year in the foundation of the league, which started in 1946. So it's a very exciting time to be a part of this organization.
Wow, that 80 years is a long time. And I know lots of big milestones. I know the Dallas Symphony Orchestra is turning 125 this year. So there's lots of things to celebrate all around.
Yes.
That's
We
fantastic.
actually have three anniversaries because we have 125 for the symphony, which is incredible, 80th for the league, and 40th for Dallas Symphony Orchestra League Deb presentation.
Wow,
So
that's a
it's a
lot.
trifecta of fabulous.
Okay, so I have to ask, every 40 years or so, you all are bringing in something new. What's the new thing you're going to bring in now that 40 years has gone by with the ball? Is there going to be another big thing that you all are going to start in the next few years? I'm just kind of kidding, but
Yeah, every 40. We're going to have to ask some of the young symphony members who are very vibrant. They
That's
will
funny you
come
ask
with our
that.
new, most modern idea.
We are actually we have seven fundraisers this year. Traditionally, we've had five, but we are adding two more. So I
one
can
of
talk
them
about that on another note.
one of them could be the next big one that goes on for 40 years. So it was just an observation. I was like, oh gosh, every 40 years you all come out with something new. So, I want to talk about how, and 80 years, 40 years, 125 years, those are all long durations. And I want to Maggie, we'll start with this question with you, and then Claire, I'd love your response as well. But I'd love to hear how each of you got involved with the DSO League, because the thing about how people get involved with organizations, everyone's kind of got their own way that they got involved, and it's always good to have an understanding of that. So Maggie, I'd love for you to share how you initially got involved with this organization.
Thank you for asking. DSO is just an incredible organization, and I've been involved as different friends have chaired their gala, which is in September annually. And I've known many people that were involved in DSO League, but most of all, I have so many friends who are Dallas Symphony Debs, both Debs and for the men honor guard, and they talked always so lovingly and fondly, some of them, this was many decades ago, about how much fun they had meeting new people, learning about being, a polite and intelligent and most of all generous, giving back, to the symphony and to your community um, through the Deb, initially through the Deb and honor guard process. So when Claire, who was president elect at the time, asked me, along with my co-chair Kristen Hallam, you know, to chair this, I mean, it was almost a year and a half ago. I was elated for an opportunity to be involved with such an important tradition, and even more so to fundraise and get great exposure with young people through this for the symphony.
That's absolutely fantastic. And, Claire, I'd love for you to share how you've been involved, because I know you've been involved with the organization for a minute. So I'd love to hear, kind of how you initially got involved and what's had you continue to be involved year after year.
So I was the first debutante to become president of the Symphony League. I made my debut over 15 years ago, around 15 years ago, I think. And so it was a big honor that I got involved on the board. Shortly after making my debut, I got to see all these wonderful women getting involved in the community, and they reached out to me asking if I'd like to serve on the board. And so it was a great opportunity. I got to learn a lot about how our membership works, our fundraising initiatives work, and it was a really great community to get involved in because our women do so much for the symphony and other organizations.
I'm glad you shared that, and I'm glad you shared you were a Deb, and you're the first president who was also a Deb. What made you decide? Because a lot of things that people do kind of in their high school, college days may not necessarily be what they do in their adult days. What made you decide? What, I'm really going to stay involved with this organization, really kind of throughout a substantial portion of your life.
Yes, I decided that I wanted to get involved with the Symphony League because we do so much for the community. We have our Young Musicians program, our Young Strings program, and I saw the firsthand impacts on the lives that we transform through our educational initiatives in schools in South Dallas. And I saw that opportunity and wanted to give back to something bigger than myself.
That's fantastic, and that's really a great thing, and it's great to see the next generation of leaders rising up as you've been involved with the organization for the last 15 years. And one thing that I always like about leagues and guilds and things like that is you all support an organization, and they're what I like to call, for lack of a better term, tandem organization. So you've got the league and you've got the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, separately. And Maggie, I'd love for you to start, and then Claire, feel free to chime in. But what are the keys to having a good relationship, between the league and then the Dallas Symphony Orchestra mothership, so that everyone feels like they're in sync and they're on the same page, and you're really making the most out of the funds that you're raising to really substantially impact the Dallas community?
Wow, yeah, that's a great question, and alignment in everything is just incredibly important. With the league, we have a very clearly defined mission, both on the Deb side, what the event is, and what we raise money for that will directly support DSO, and that's the Young Musicians and the Young Strings program. So we're able to do, and first of all, DSO is just an exceptionally well-run organization. And I've worked with a lot of organizations, and it really speaks to the quality of, of the leadership and all the staff there, that they're able to support us well so that we can put on a wonderful experience and maximize what we can give back, to them. So, I think, it's being clear on what is whose job. But I think it's a perfect, I have been part of, leagues and guilds where it's a little bit fraught, and there's a lot of harmony, and there's a lot of harmony and clear alignment here, which is great.
That's fantastic. And Claire, I'd love for you to share, as the president, how do you, communicate and work and correspond with the DSO? Because you're probably, as the president, probably the main voice, or one of the main characters in terms of, sharing and communicating, goals and vision between the organizations.
So I think one of the most important aspects of any organization is your onboarding process. And this year, I've decided to do a board kickoff. So really acquainting our board members with what the expectation is up front, delineating their roles, and being a good delegator. So I think that entails people understanding what their job is, and then also making sure that we've got that bridge between our league staff so that they feel supported by our league, communicating their expectations up front, and seeing how we can partner with the DSO, which is the organization that we fundraise for, not just their young musicians programs, but also their orchestra musicians. We've got initiatives that celebrate them. So just making sure that we have a subscriber package this year, which I've added, allowing for our members to go to the same concerts together, and allowing them to understand why we're here, why we're raising these critical funds, and what it's doing in the greater community.
I'm really glad that you brought that up. And I love some of the innovative things that you're doing because really what that fosters is it fosters continuity, because people get to go with the same groups of friends, but also community, like you said, because it's something you've emphasized several times. So it's really cool to see how that, to see that in action. And I love, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question here. Talk a little bit about how the league has, because you mentioned, we mentioned at the top of the show, it's turning 80 this year. How has the league evolved and grown, since its founding, right after the war?
So
Great question.
oh, yes, Maggie, would you like to take this one?
No, I'd like you to take it.
Okay. Okay. We have over 1,000 members now, and we've got multiple different events for different types of people. We did start as a very small group. Tynesy Miller was one of the founding members, actually, of our ball. And we are doing an archival process this year to highlight our 80 years of history. So, working with a lot of our partners and our PR team to make that come to life so that we really understand where we started and where we've gone and how exciting of a time it is to be involved with DSOL.
That's really cool, and it's cool to see that you're doing the archive process so that the future generations can kind of see how it started from a small group and really kind of has evolved from there. And Maggie, I'd love to address the next question to you. And one of the other milestones this year is the presentation ball is turning 40. And you had mentioned earlier about DSO League and DSO really being almost like a gold standard in terms of organizations working well together. What is the secret to an organization to have a successful signature fundraising event, not just year after year, but decade after decade in your case? Because 40 years is it's a milestone that very few organizations achieve, in terms of a signature fundraiser.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thank you for asking. I would say that, for really long term, again, not just year after year, decade after decade success, first of all, it starts with your founders, whoever, you know, the people, usually ladies, but sometimes ladies and gentlemen, who came up with this idea. And again, I mean, Tynesy Miller and, um, her brilliant idea. She said, I will not chair another gala, but I will chair presentation ball for our young people, to highlight our young people and help them get their start in the community. So it goes all the way from founding to, we have incredible decade after decade. We have chairs, past chairs, um, and past Debs and Honor Guard almost from the start who are still involved, which is absolutely incredible. I mean, I personally, because I happen to be of the age that, a lot of the people who made their debut, 40 years ago or 30 plus years ago or closer to my age, that remain involved because it was such a special experience. And they've remained involved with the symphony, but also in the Deb and Honor Guard process. Many of them now have children, their own children who are Debs or Honor Guard. So it really is that throughput of the longevity of just staying, keeping the founders, keeping the past leaders involved, and then cultivating, new leaders. And I consider each of our Debs and Honor Guard, we consider them leaders because they're carrying this vision and the support of the symphony forward with them, even though they may be 19 or in the Honor Guard case, they're 21 plus, but they're young people. It's wonderful.
That's really amazing. And one of the things that I really enjoy about presentation balls in particular is they're one of the few types of fundraising events out there that are truly multi-generational. And it's always fun to go to a presentation ball and you see three or four generations at a single table. Claire, I'd love, for you, being more youthful here, what is, talk about how previous generations showing their leadership and maybe any fundraising that your family did helped instill your values of giving back to the community, for your generation and, likely that you'll pass it on to, your children and your own grandchildren.
So I saw first an example actually of my grandmother. She was very involved in the art world, had a beautiful home in Santa Fe, was a big art collector, and I saw her getting involved in her local symphony and chamber music programs in Santa Fe. And I didn't really understand at the time, but I think seeing how involved she was, seeing her service to others, and now as I have a master's in counseling and I understand the benefit of volunteering, it actually has shown to have long-term benefits on the brain. It prevents dementia. It helps with um, preventing depression. It helps with longevity. It helps form community relationships. And we've seen from more collective societies that those who give back and have that sense of community live longer, happier lives. And so I think seeing that from my grandmother, seeing the emotional health benefits, and then seeing also the benefits of music education on our young kids. I've got two daughters myself. I really want to work on bridging that gap with the schools that can't afford music education. And that's what we do at the league. And it's a way for me to ensure that I'm not only giving back to myself, but I'm giving back to my children and future generations of kids I might not even know. But it's ultimately a positive effect in Dallas and overall, because the symphony in Dallas is an example of volunteering, and our ball is world renowned for its success in fundraising and community support.
It absolutely is. And it is one of the gold standard. Like you said, anywhere in the world, I put the DSO presentation ball really up against really any ball in that genre of fundraising because it really is just a first class event all the way. And Maggie, I want to direct the next question to you, and I want to talk a little bit about kind of a little bit of a deeper dive about getting how we talked about getting people to come back decade after decade. What what are the keys to hosting a successful event that allows people to want to come back every year? Because, we talked about, the generations coming down, but there has to be a level of fun, a level of something that gets people to really come back, and you have a core group of supporters that will always come along with you. And I know you've worked with DSO and as well as many other organizations, so I'd love to hear your take on that, having done that over the years.
Yes. I would say, and it really is, the DSO Deb presentation really is unique as, I giggle with Claire and everybody on our team. It's a full year, closer to a year and a half of work. I have not gotten around to counting our events, but probably 30 plus parties. We have five between last night and Sunday, five events. Um, and so, it is the balance. It's the balance, I feel like, specifically for the Debs of fun, but tradition. It's really our goal here when it comes to the personal development is, we want these, and it's a family event as well. It's not just the Deb, it's the Deb and her parents and grandparents, and it's honor guard and their parents and grandparents. But we want everybody to have fun, to learn. I especially love the tradition of everything and the etiquette of everything that you know that young ladies and young gentlemen can have fun, be cool, but also be very polite. um, and learn ways to interact with each other, with the opposite sex, or with people older or their same age in such a beautiful way. And I am somewhat of a traditionalist at heart. I think these life skills are really important for everybody, and for any young person to learn, and they get such an opportunity. But you have to have a mix. If it were just fun, you know, th- that wouldn't be enough. It's fun. It's carrying on their tradition, and kind of with an overall goal of supporting the symphony. And again, we have a bow practice tomorrow, which is really great. Our first bow practice with the Debs and the honor guard, and that's a rigorous process. You have to be very fit to be able to do the Texas dip. I was trying to get Miss Claire to do her dip. I said, it's only been 15 years. Last night, I could not. I did not win that battle. And then I came up with the idea that I think the Deb moms and, the leadership, we should all learn to do the bow. you know, to be supportive of our Debs, but I don't know if I'll win that. Um, but we get to do bow practice at one of the most beautiful buildings, if not in the world, in the country, at the Meyerson, and really be part of this treasure. It's just such a treasure.
It absolutely is. And the Meyerson really is a beautiful space. And I want to direct the next question to Claire, and it kind of piggybacks off of what Maggie was just talking about, how really you all have like a season. It's like 9 months. You start with a kickoff event and festivities go from there. I'd love for you to share a little bit about what it takes to host a successful kickoff party, in that it generates buzz, but it also generates excitement for what's ahead over the subsequent months and the many events that happen between now and then to keep donors engaged.
So we had our announcement party at a local club a few months ago, and we had the same MC come every year. He is fantastic. We have the Debs presented. We say a little bit about where they go to college, what they're studying, and then they're escorted by our honor guard, which is our young men's program. It's a private men's club. They are on their own, but they also help serve us. And so it's really about that excitement of the season. And then we have many parties throughout. My favorite one is Polo Party, which is this weekend. And we've got our casino party, which we're doing a Palm Royale, Casino Royale theme. And then our etiquette event, we do a training with the Debs and the moms at our Christmas tea, where they learn about the importance of writing a thank you note, the importance of making eye contact. When I went through this program, I really learned how to not only present myself as a woman, but the importance of gratitude. And I think that translates over now. That training that I learned years ago has translated now to me supporting our donors, showing gratitude. That's the way that you retain these volunteers. I know you asked Maggie that question, and I wanted to touch on it because it's so important. The way that you retain returning donors and families is by thanking them, giving them a great process during the season, and showing their children the value and benefit of, this is how you sit at a luncheon, this is how you network, giving those things that you don't just get at a cocktail party, but that added value that they get during the season, and then they get to implement those skills and network. It's a great opportunity.
Those skills are all incredibly valuable and important. And it's fun that you have different ways that people can do those things and learn those skills over a long period of time. And there is a second long period of time thing. And each of you have touched upon it in passing, but I want to dive a little bit more deeply into it. And that is, the process is an 18-month process for a chair from start to finish. And that's a long time to work with somebody. And Maggie, I'd love to start with you with this question. And that is, what are the keys to building a strong relationship between an organization and an event chair so that everybody's on the same page and you're raising the most amount of money possible?
Yes. And that's a great question. Our entire team, first of all, it starts with respect. And again, gratitude is a huge part. But, I could not work, I am biased, but I love our president, Claire, and my co-chair, Kristen Hallam, we have been dear friends for a long time, and we have just an exceptional team. We have everybody from my friend Nancy Gopez, who did reservations last year. They've described the actual Deb Ball. We have 43 beautiful Debs this year, as 43 weddings at the Meyerson in one evening, and you're not far off from that. Doing reservations and different wonderful, amazing groups for underwriting and parties. But it starts with, respect, um, you know, finding people who are really committed to the cause, hard workers, will do what they say they're going to do, whether it's big or small. People who want to have fun too. If something isn't fun, you know, you're not going to do it long term. Just that's a fact. That's anything. We are raising money that's important and raising awareness for an organization. But if it's not fun, you're not going to come back year after year, much less decade after decade. So we carry that in the way we work with, our parents, our dead parents are critical and they're thanked and respected. And then as we carry that up the chain, working with the DSO, because this is a different process. And again, you have these young ladies, they're being honored, their family is being honored, and this has to be perfect. And that's absolutely my favorite, my favorite part of this. We had a lot of former Debs at an event last night, and they were talking about just what a special year it was for their families. And especially, this gave me a giggle. This was moms and daughters last night. None of the men were there, but that their dads, who had no idea what to expect of the presentation ball, in particular, were blown away by just the beauty, the tradition. It's absolutely beautiful. But we try to have some fun and make it special at every event we have.
Making it special is so key, and having fun is key too. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's definitely been an undercurrent of what you do. Is you all make sure every event is fun that you have. And Claire, I want you to answer that question as well, but really more from an organization perspective of what are some traits that you all look for when finding an event chair, as well as why it's important to ask a chair so far out in advance of the event to be a chair so that it is successful?
That's a great question, Rod. I think it's important for us as a league to ask a year in advance. So during the previous ball season, and just a hint, we do have next year's ball chairs already selected.
And they're incredible.
Yes, they are. I can't announce that yet, but it'll be announced during next presentation ball. We really make sure that they understand what the process is so they can go to the events during this season, see how it works, meet our board, meet a lot of the volunteers that come back year to year. We have the same individuals that help with check-in, or the same individuals that are in assembly each year. A lot of the same mentors come back. Barbara Averett's a critical part of our organization. She's planned the DEB coordinator position. She's done that for over 30 years since this was incepted. And so it's really critical that they understand all the different moving parts. We've got underwriting, which is a big part of what any organization does, making sure that they understand that, making sure they understand how the dresses work. We've got two great retail partners, Neiman Marcus, Stanley Korshak, making sure that they understand how that works during the season, and then seeing things that can be improved. I've been involved on the ball committee for 10 years. So when I stepped into this role, I said, I think we need to add this. I want to add more networking opportunities for the Debs. And I had those insights because I was involved. I think when you step into an organization and you haven't had that familiarity, it makes it a little bit more difficult and challenging because you don't know what you're getting into. And so I think that's why it's so important. It helps that continuity of information. And ultimately, it's a more collaborative process because you know who you're working with. There's multiple personalities when you are managing any organization. And so you have to find that fine balance between being a leader, but also allowing them to figure it out and delegate so that they can feel like they have autonomy over their own decisions.
Very, very, very well said. I mean, every piece of advice you gave there, especially, just delegating and giving people the power to make their own decisions. But also, I loved what you brought up about, you have done the work, so it made it easier for you to step into the role because you were very familiar with the organization, as well as having your own ideas of, I've been wanting to try this for probably 7 years, and now I'm the president and I get to try it. And that's what makes any event or organization great, is that each president will leave their own mark and each leader will leave their own mark, and it allows the organization to build and build. And, I want to talk a little bit about what guests can expect to experience at this year's ball. And Maggie, I'd love to start with you on that. When people walk in, explain the concept of the evening and just kind of what guests can expect to experience from the second they walk into the door.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, you walk in, there's, again, few places in this world that are as beautiful as the Meyerson. So it's just, you know, it's beautiful and special, so there's a reception as people are milling around. This is the Deb's night. This is our 43 ladies again and their families. This is really their chance. And they have their portraits, which are always very special. So you get to see the Deb's portraits. Then you enter the Symphony Hall, which is beautiful. And, you know, the presentation is centered around announcing each Deb with their own theme music. So you have the symphony playing, these wonderful, these wonderful short clips, what a wonderful world, or, they have many choices to choose from, as they do their bow, which is just beautiful. And then after that, the party opens up. Are we allowed, Claire? Can you share who our entertainment is?
Yes, I can expand on that. Happy to. So we have the guests arrive. The families will come early to the Meyerson. We will do a Deb and honor guard photo on the stairs, which is always widely celebrated. So that takes place first. Then the Debs will go backstage so no one sees their dresses as they enter. Then we start the presentation ball. And then at the end, we have the grand tableau, which is where the honor guard and Debs are all presented together in tandem. Then the Debs are escorted out by their honor guards. Their dads are waiting for them on the dance floor for their waltz. We have a trumpet entrance on those stairs. And once they walk down, they will make their waltz with their dad. Their moms will also see them in the hallway. And it's a very emotional but fun part of the night. And then they sit down for dinner and dancing with Jordan Kahn Band. And David Alexander is our musician on stage. And we're going to do something really special to feature them because we are the symphony. We have these wonderful musicians that play live music. So during the presentation ball, we're going to do something new this year. And Kristen, Maggie, and I are really excited to announce that addition because each year the ball chairs do something that improves it and it carries on that tradition. And it's great to have new ideas and it makes it fresh. So I love the vision of both of our co-chairs. They're just phenomenal.
Well, that is fantastic. And just, always leaving them kind of wanting more. And when you add something kind of unexpected or new every year, that just gives the whole room some energy. And Maggie, did you have anything you wanted to chime in on?
No, it's just, it's great. It's the energy of, again, everything from, 19-year-olds, and there are siblings, generally older, siblings, 15, 16. I'll in fact have my 16-year-old daughter, my daughter who will be 16 at the time, join me and, and see how this behavior works. But you have a lot of young people, you have grandparents, you have everything from, again, people in their late teens to people in their 90s. And so it's a really joyous and traditional celebration that we love, but we always try to make it, feel modern as well and relevant. And then afterwards, as generally the parents go back to their hotels, most of the parents stay downtown close by. The young people have their party, which kind of ends that year. And then, you're going on into the next year where there are great chances for them to be involved.
That's absolutely amazing. And, I know we're coming up on time here, and I want to end with this one question. You two are just so uniquely equipped to answer this that I'm excited to hear your answers. And Claire, we'll start with you, and Maggie, you can have the last word. And that is, what do all great fundraising events have in common?
I think great fundraisers, they have a good planning team. I think it starts with your planning. It starts with, again, setting those expectations. It starts with if you've already established your organization and group, you want to keep things pretty much the same, but also think outside the box. So it's good to continue with that, what you've already established, but it's good to add new ideas. And so I think, again, it's finding that balance. And then communication during the year is key. So with your team, you need to communicate. I try to check in with our ball chairs and let them know that I am here. My phone is open if you need to reach me, and I will always try to call back. And if you've got a question, come to me. I'm not unavailable. I think that that's the most important thing for any leader to understand is that they are accessible.
Making yourself available is so key. And Maggie, you get the last word.
Oh, wow. I definitely don't deserve that, and thank you again. But well, you probably figured out fun is my driver. But so fun, and I'd say an honest alignment with the mission. It really it shines through. I've been involved with the community for a long time, but people's true passion for the organization, and their mission really, that's something you have to have in your heart to work as hard as you need to. It's hard work. And that's, again, where the fun, you get fun. You have to have it balanced with fun and something you enjoy, something people are enjoying. But it has to be balanced with, the goal, the drive, especially the hard work with, you know, doing what the organization needs. Because if you have a fun party, but you're not, raising the money for the organization they need, you really haven't met your goal. But if you're raising the money and people have not had fun, you're probably not going to have a great return. You might, but so fun and alignment and honest alignment with the organization is just always key.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up. I'd never heard the phrase honest alignment, but that is absolutely true because that aligns with passion. And that is just one of those things when you walk into a room, all the event planning in the world can't create that energy that just kind of comes and radiates from the guests, the organization, the staff, the team, whomever it is. And it creates that magical moment. You can totally see why over the last 40 years, the presentation ball has really been a gold standard of not just, presentation balls, but of fundraising events, in Texas and beyond. So with that, Maggie, Claire, thank you both so much for joining us today. I had an absolute blast talking with both of you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for hosting us.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. And the 40th annual presentation ball benefiting the Dallas Symphony Orchestra League will be held on February 21st, 2026 in Dallas, Texas. For more information, please visit dallassymphonyleague.com. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.